Hello, welcome to one of our Info Voices interviews that we're streaming out to a number of organisations, including Global Net 21, Info Matters, Have Your Doorstep, local and some national ones. And in these interviews, we discuss a number of things. We talk to people who are trying to make a difference. We talk to people who are involved in local campaigns and so on. And what we're going to look at now is the importance of locally talking about international issues, about acting locally and thinking globally. And I've got with me today Ali Hessami, who you can see here, and he'll introduce himself at the moment. But what I should say, first of all, is Ali is co-chair of the local United Nations Association, and strangely enough, I'm the other co-chair. And we're going to talk about why we set it up. And what value it has locally and how important it is. But let me introduce Ali first of all. Hi, Ali, welcome to this. Perhaps you could tell us a bit about yourself and how you got involved in the United Nations Association.
Thank you, Francis. I'm Ali Hessami. I used to be resident in Palmer's Green, which was the auspicious occasion where I came across colleagues in local branch of United Nations Association. Now I have moved to Enfield, but I'm still active member of the so-called EBUNA, the Enfield and Barnett's branch of UNA. The involvement with EBUNA or UNA was quite a chance occasion where around about 2009, winter of 2009, I remember I organized a protest gathering somewhere in the green near Cherry Tree and advertised it locally, and all like-minded folks, specifically all the members of local UNA branch turned up. I wasn't aware of such an entity at the time, and I was basically asked to give a speech about why we're all gathering there, which I don't exactly remember the cause. Maybe it was about saving the bees or something of that nature. Eventually, I got involved. I was invited to attend the local UNA branch and joined as a membership secretary that I still hold. And frankly, I've been involved because it actually fulfills the desire to have a debate and a discussion space on local and largely political and global matters that have ramifications for local community as well.
And of course, Ali, the United Nations Association exists, doesn't it, to support the United Nations. That doesn't mean we think it's perfect. We all think it needs desperate reform. But all of us believe there has to be some sort of global governance, or else the world will fragment into individual units, and that's quite dangerous.
Absolutely. I entirely agree. I think it's almost like the analogy of democracy from quotation from Winston Churchill, that is amongst the worst systems, but please come up with a better one if you can. So UN may have many of its failings, but it is the best compromise globally that we have. And in the current climate, the need for a stronger UN is even more pronounced than it has been since the early years of post-war period. So I think our role as local branches is quite significant because we bring the, if you like, the legitimacy to the establishment and to the UN that people have a voice, and it's not just organized political systems that enforce control.
Do you actually know, Ali, how we started, how it all began locally, or shall I go through that?
Please go through, because as I elaborated, I've only been involved through chance and luck and circumstance back in 2009, and I'm sure the local branch was started by yourself and Roger Hallam much earlier than that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it began when, in 2001, when 9/11 happened and the planes went into the Twin Towers, etc. I mean, I was concerned, and a number of us were concerned that the world was changing. There was a paradigm shift in a way. 21st century was going to be very, very different from the 20th century. And we had to rethink our world and rethink our nation and rethink our locality. And we were worried there was going to be a knee-jerk reaction to what happened in Twin Towers, and that the American government, supported by the British government, were going to take immediate action that might be precipitous. So I bumped into Roger Hallam, and Roger said, "What can we do?" And I said, "Why don't we form a United Nations association so that we can begin to put our view over locally and also put pressure on our MPs?" So we started doing it. But I don't know if you remember, Harry, we did it rather differently to what most branches do. You know, we became a sort of web-based branch. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's what happened. We decided that what we wanted to do was, first of all, influence our MPs. So we set up a website called MP Watch. And we had 3 MPs then, Andy Lupjo, Ryan, Stephen Twigg. And we would regularly contact them to get their views on what was happening internationally. We would put their answers up on the website. Andy did it rather laboriously. Joan actually sent, I think, press releases from her party, but Stephen actually did think and did give us very considered answers. And it worked quite well, but the trouble with websites, as we know, is it's unlike the age of Facebook, where you can get a lot of people viewing. Websites, a lot of people didn't go to it. So we were doing a lot of work for not a lot of social impact. And so we started then to hold public meetings, and we held meetings in Edmonton, in Southgate. We held one at St. John's Church. We invited MPs and MEPs, and they came and talked to us. Barnet UNA became involved with us, so Teresa Villiers was also involved. And we had really, really great meetings. I mean, the one in St. John's Church with Jean Lambert and Stephen Twigg was packed, and the main church was packed right out. And that was a debate and topic on the Middle East. So those public meetings became a way of engaging people that were really good. We then decided that when elections would turn up, we would have hustings. And so at general elections and European elections, up until the last one where we didn't do it, we held hustings in all 4, or at least 1 of the constituencies. One of the hustings we even did in the mosque, which was fantastic in Palmer's Green. Lots of people went there just to see the mosque. It was an exciting thing to do, but it was a very engaged, different, and a new audience. So we did that. And then we did under Roger's initiative, and I think Roger needs to be praised for developing this, we developed a civil society forum at which we and a number of other groups got together and collectively then were able to lobby MPs and so on. Unfortunately, that civil society forum no longer exists, but on the web, there's a great chance of renewing it in a way. But that was the background, and you came in, didn't you, when we were actually sort of doing all of this?
Yes. Yes, I was lucky to have started that local protest movement, because that brought me in touch with many of the active members of the local UNA. And I naturally found a space for enlightened views, debate, analysis, sharing of perspectives on local and global initiatives and challenges and crises. And frankly, I think that's what UNA locally has to offer to all those who are looking for a space for unbiased and, if you like, informed view exchange. We were a bit more active in the past, as you rightly said. Apart from monthly meetings, we had talks and hustings, and even a newsletter where we used to put our views and share it with those who didn't make it to our regular meetings. And I still feel that we have a role to play locally, both in terms of a new global governance, if you like, for UN, based on views of the local communities, as well as for the exchange and debate, as not to mention, we forgot to mention the book club that Roger started, and that is a very strong element of our activity. And every 1.5-2 months, we have a book club session running over sometimes sometimes 3 hours of debate on topical books that we select and we debate. So overall, very varied, very colorful, and very inviting and friendly space for political and social debate.
I was going to ask you a bit about the book club and new developments, and I'll come to that in a minute. But we did hold regular meetings as well, you're right. And we even had meetings where we had people come in and talk to us. I mean, I don't know if you came to the meeting where we had Carl Rouge. Now, Carl was
Yes.
a 90-year-old incredible man who started the Barnet UNA, and he was also a magistrate, and he was active in the Liberal Party there. But he was born in Germany when Hitler was rising to power, and Karl was a Jew, and he was facing real persecution. And he would go to work every day on his bike with his passport in his pocket and a wad of money with him, because he knew he might have to escape any day. And he told us all about that. He told us how he went to his home, saw the SS troops going in, how he got on his bike with his passport and his money and cycled from there in Germany all the way to Spain. Yeah. And then from Spain, he came to England, and then he became a major in the army and fought against his own country. And he told us about, how he fought, Hitler and the Nazis on the streets at that time when he was in Germany. So he told us about this incredible history and how he thought in the post-war period, the way to try and prevent that is for us to collaboratively work together. And the United Nations was an important way of collaboration. And that message is still strong, isn't it, Ali?
Absolutely. I still remember actually attending UNA meetings in Carl's house. He was very generous and used to host us, even though he wasn't feeling very well. I remember we used to go, and sometimes he would hardly even make it to come from his bed to join us in the debate. But I'm sure he was joining in, listening, and had a very active spirit. And that's what's kept us going, even though I was looking as a membership secretary of the local branch at some of the statistics that I had when I first joined and recent times. And our basically community is almost halved from roughly 40 members back in 2013 to round about 17 now. So we very much feel that the space is still there, the attraction is there. In fact, the need for open, unbiased debate is still very strong, if not stronger today than ever. And we really look forward to having more people join in and express views and hopefully create an enlightened environment and atmosphere for influencing things beyond our local community as well.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with the UNA is because its sort of heyday was after the war. And in 1945 onwards, that was a time when people did meet together in committees. You had anti-apartheid and CND and UNA and eventually Amnesty International and so on. And they grew up meeting regularly. And those people kept meeting. And of course, as the world went on and the decades went on, people got older and older, and those meetings got older and older too in terms of the demographics. And so we really had a problem. And I think there's a way of renewing our interest in global governance now by using means like this, social networks and video, and doing it more effectively that way, because we engage more people. The trouble is with the old way of doing it, you tend to get the same suspects coming all the time. So there are new opportunities in a way, aren't there?
Absolutely. One thing has also changed since I joined, and that was the governance of UNA from largely member-influenced sort of entity and organization towards a center-driven, almost like a think tank organization. And obviously, some of us were not entirely pleased with that change of ethos, and I made some remarks and some protests about loss of member influence, because you remember well that we used to have annual conferences, and we used to put in the points of discussion and debate at the annual conference, which would be sort of discussed and picked based on popularity and become policy of the UNA. Unfortunately, we lost a bit of that. And that's the other thing that would a larger number of participants would help to change and restructure the governance of UNA, which is badly needed in these days and in the shape of in the form and the environment of current challenges, and basically be able to go back to a more member-driven governance model in the UNA, the same as we expect from United Nations itself.
Yeah, I guess the trouble with that governance-driven model is that, you know, many young people don't sort of get involved in those things. That's why I think the UNA nationally went down the think tank way of doing things rather than the membership, because they could see the membership was declining. And I think that happened to a lot of organizations, Amnesty International, Greenpeace and so on. They all tried to ape the think tank model rather than the participatory model that, you know, they probably began with. And in a way that reflected the way corporate society was going. But somehow I think social network can bring us back to citizens again. And is that something that you would welcome?
I was actually going to pose that question to you, because you're the master of social network debate space. You have been extremely innovative and successful in organizing the 21st century environment, social networking environment for webcasting, for sharing views, for debating topical social and political issues, etc. I was going to pose that question to you, that given that the governance has taken, from my perspective at least, a turn for the worse, but we have the potential of social networking and remote exchange of ideas and views and broadcasting well beyond the boundary of a physical space that we live in Enfield and Barnet. How do you think we can actually utilize the technology to engage more people, particularly young people that we seem to lack in our membership profile, and then by virtue of that have a broader influence on the governance of UNA, and through them influence the UN if possible?
I mean, I wouldn't say I was an expert on social networking, but I do sort of use it a lot. And I think it can be used in all sorts of different ways. It can be done. It can be used like we're doing it now, where people can then stream what they're talking about out to Facebook, and people who are interested in what we're doing can contact us and get involved. But you can use social networks to start campaigns. So if we, instead of sitting in a little room and a half a dozen people spending half an hour drafting a letter to write to a government department, we can set up a petition, or we can set up a campaign on the web, which would get more people involved and involved with us as well. I mean, we could, if we wanted, set up a local Enfield United Nations Facebook group, but then that would mean people who could work it. And I couldn't do that because I have enough on my plate already. And another Facebook group would be a step too far. But you know, I think doing things like that are really important. And for young people, Facebook is not the social network anymore. It's that's becoming an older person's social network. It's growing at the age range of over 45 and declining in the age range under 45. So we need younger people who would come with us and use Instagram and Snapchat. And if we could do that, I think we could engage in a different way. But we'd have to understand, you know, modern social networking society is a drop-in, drop-out sort of society. People don't get engaged like they did back in 1945 onwards. They came into a group, they stayed there forever in a way, and were very, very committed. People come in for a campaign, come in for an issue, go away, maybe come back, go away. And you have to take into account that ephemeral nature. So working with young people that way is very important. But what I wanted to ask you as well is one thing we haven't mentioned. We talked about how we're developing, and we talked about the book group, which Roger Hallam started as well, and he keeps that going, and he loves that. I don't like book groups. It makes me read books I don't want to read because I've got a whole list of other books, but some people love them. And and the next book he's got is one I am going to read, actually. It's David Ransom, How Democracy Fails, which looks at the whole challenge of global democracy because of not what happened in the 30s, not the rise of fascism, but that it's being changed by populism slowly, so we don't notice it's being eroded away. And I think it's a really good book, and I think that book group is great. But in terms of engaging young people, we did start, and you've been developing this, haven't you? Links with the University of Middlesex University. We actually were invited there some time ago to actually do a model United Nations meeting with students. We chose not to do the General Assembly, but to do the Security Council, where students represented different countries. They had to debate an issue and then vote at the end. And those were very, very exciting. And we did those for quite a while. And I was heavily involved in the beginning, but become less involved as I've been doing these other things. But you've actually developed that, haven't you? And you've been working now with Middlesex to take this a step further. Do you want to tell us about that?
Excuse me. Yes, I think that's another important aspect of our activity. Apart from taking it to local schools, we also struck some agreement with Middlesex University, where we took the so-called Model Security Council exercise to the postgraduate students of politics and international politics at the university. Some of the tutors and lecturers were very favorable to this. So as far as I remember, at least I have been involved in 3 or 4 of these, and I'm sure they've been going for many years beyond that since I joined in 2009. The formats generally is that we have a pre-meeting where we coordinate the plan with the organizers and the university, and then on the day the students assume representation of various Security Council member states, and they come up with a list of preferences and parameters, so to speak, that they would like to push for agreement at the sort of UN level or Security Council level. And then there is a whole series of debates between horse trading between various countries represented by 3 or 5 students. And basically that's been incredibly successful. And just to take it further, a couple of months ago, we also held one more session to review the list of topical issues, so-called parameters. And we came up with a much more up-to-date set of parameters that we would like to share with local schools, colleges, as well as Middlesex University in their future exercises on Model Security Council. So that is another opportunity where most of the members of the local UNA are very supportive. We've had, other than 1 or 2 members who have other engagements like yourself, most of them turn up, support the event in one capacity or other. And from the feedback that we receive, the students not only enjoy the exercise, but it is really ramming the message home that this is the way UN may be working, and enlighten them about how to work with it and how to influence it and improve it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been very successful what you've done and what others have done. I can remember when we did the very first one lady came along and she joined GlobalNet 21, and she's been coming to meetings ever since. She's a formidable older lady who always comes late, asks a question and goes, but she's really fantastic and keeps paying her subscription every month, even though it's annual. And I keep saying you don't have to, but she keeps doing it. And that came from Middlesex University initiative. So people have got keep in touch. Mark Fisher has actually said he's come online, and he says he remembers our MP Watch page that time ago, but he didn't know it was us doing it. Now he knows it was us. We're the guilty party. But we did do that some time ago. And then Mark also asked, do we have a Facebook group for the UNA locally? But we don't. And that's what I was saying earlier. If we could find somebody who wanted to start a Facebook group or page or whatever, that would be a great way of engaging new people. So, I mean, I think there's a lot happening. The book group still carries on. People talk about it. And a group of people meet again every Friday morning as well, don't they, in Wetherspoons, and talk over UNA issues. And do you want to tell us what you do there?
Well, every twice a month we get together as an informal local UNA group at the local Alfred Herrings in Palmer's Green High Street, and basically keep the debate alive on various issues. The next one is at 10:30 this coming Friday. So if anyone's around, do pop in and join us. We have a very convivial and friendly environment over a cup of coffee from Alfred Herring, and sit and discuss just about anything important political and social issues at national, local, and sometimes international level. So that keeps the interest and the debate alive and going in a much more convivial setting than a kind of a formalized session where we have minutes and agenda items, etc. This is an informal gathering of the same people, and often attended by 4 or 5 people altogether. So next one is this coming Friday at Alfred Herrings in Palmer's Green. Anyone who is willing to come along and sample the nature of the atmosphere and debate, I would welcome them joining.
Okay, and Mark Fisher's just said, great, you told me that. I might try and come along this week. So if he comes, that would be really, really nice.
That would be good.
And he wants to know how he contacts us. And so I'll send him details about meetings and everything so he knows. And then I'll make sure with Bill Linton, not Bill Clinton, he's not, but Bill Linton, who is our secretary, has you, Mark, on his contact list. Anyhow, I mean, just finally, because we're getting very close to the end, it is really important, isn't it, Ali, that people in Enfield don't just discuss cycle lanes and where the next bus stop is going to be and whether the garbage is cleared. Now, that's really important, but they also consider international issues, and especially when the UNA now has come up with the Sustainable Development Goals that they want implemented by 2030, which deals with education and poverty and water shortage and equality and so on and so on. And there's a lot of work done on that. And I think that's something we probably in the UNA locally should discuss more. But it is very important that people think about those things, because what happens globally does impact on us locally, doesn't it? I mean, it's not something that happens far away. It could have, like climate change, for example, it can have tremendous repercussions on our own localities.
Absolutely. I think technology turned us into a global village, and it works both ways. Events far afield influence us, affect us in many ways, direct or indirect, and vice versa. It also empowers people from a local community to have a disproportionate impact on the debate and, if you like, influence far afield as well. So that is the kind of vision that we are striving to promote in our local UNA, that don't worry about the size of the gathering and number of members, etc. If we have constructive, well-informed and enlightened views through the likes of your community, Francis, your 21st century environment, or through the power of technology, we could be broadcasting it and influencing the nature of things and decisions and events far afield from Palmer's Green and Enfield and Barnet. So that's the aspiration. That's why we welcome people to join in and not shy away, just focusing on local matters. If we have visions about how the UN should be governed, we are as influential as anyone to actually chip in and put in our bid for those ideas.
Okay, well, thanks for that. We just had someone called Emma Kamali just say hello on site. That might mean she might be interested. So I'll write to you, Emma, and find out if you are interested, and also let you know about details. And that goes for anyone else. If they want to know about what's happening as far as the UNA is concerned, if they're interested in discussing global governance issues, and they want to find an environment where they can do that, then please contact me, and I'll make sure your name is passed on to the local UNA and you will know about those activities. So please do that. That would be great. Anyhow, Ali, thank you for joining us and discussing with it. It was a really pleasant conversation. Our next interview, though sometimes we have them in between, we did last week, we threw in an extra one, but next week I think we're looking at the Meridian water question in Enfield and the council's reaction to that. And Alan Sitkin is going to lead us in that sort of interview discussion. So I'll hope you join us then, but we'll send information out to you about that. But anyhow, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your points. And Ali, thank you again for that.
Okay.
And that was great. Anyhow, we'll end the broadcast now, and thank you all.
Have a nice day. Bye.